All right, everybody, welcome back to the Peter Schiff Show. I'm Tom Woods in for Peter, and what a privilege it is right now to be able to talk to Mark Sisson of the Primal Blueprint, author of the Primal Blueprint, also the Primal Blueprint 21-Day Total Body Transformation, and other books as well. He's got many athletic achievements to his credit, including a top 5 finish in the 1980 U.S. National Marathon Championships. But don't worry, he is not going to tell you that you need to train to run a marathon or be a triathlete in order to be in good health. Quite to the contrary. But what he has done is he is really at the cusp of a revolution in how we think about not just diet and weight loss, but about how we live our lives for optimum health. And it often involves ignoring and sometimes doing the exact opposite of what the conventional wisdom recommends. And I think you're going to be very interested in what he's got to say. Regardless, I insist that people listening to this broadcast visit his website, marksdailyapple.com. It's unbelievable how day in and day out he can have fresh material on stuff that you think, well, there must be a finite amount to say about it. Absolutely not. You're always getting valuable insights every day at marksdailyapple.com. So, Mark, thank you so much for taking some time with us today on the Peter Schiff Show.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Well, let me start, before I let you talk about what the Primal Blueprint is, I just want to tell you that when I posted something on my tomwoods.com website saying that I might embrace this myself, and my wife and I are, in fact, planning to go at it with gusto starting next month, I got more comments than I've gotten in, I don't know, many months on a blog post from people saying, do it, it's the best thing I ever did. I've never felt better. I would never go back to my former habits. And I've had, well, but what impressed me most was not so much the stories of weight loss, which are fantastic and wonderful, but I don't need to lose that much weight, so that's not the main concern for me. It's just the overall health improvements that people are reporting. Their energy levels are up. People who have had various maladies during their lives that they just thought they'd have to put up with and tolerate are just gone. So that's why my wife and I finally decided we got to give this a try. We'd be crazy not to give this a try. So why don't you, I'm sure you've had to do this a gazillion times, but a lot of our listeners are totally unfamiliar with the Primal Blueprint, which is something, I like the fact that you go out of your way not to call it a diet, because it's a way of living. Give us the sort of the 3-minute overview of what this is all about, if you can.
Sure. The Primal Blueprint is actually a way of regaining control of your own health and fitness by understanding how the body works and how we can literally manipulate gene expression on a minute-to-minute, day-to-day basis in the way in which genes rebuild, renew, regenerate, and recreate ourselves. Now, the clues to how we switch on certain genes and turn off other genes is found in evolutionary biology in 2.5 million years of human evolution and confirmed by modern genetic science. So what we've really done is we've accessed information where people can choose certain types of foods to eat, certain ways to move or exercise, sun exposure or not, ways to sleep that allow the body to repair damage it's done, to regain good health, to maybe improve energy levels. The idea is that each of us is born with a recipe for a perfect, happy, healthy, productive, lean, fit, strong human being. Each of us possesses this wonderful recipe that is the result of 2.5 million years of human evolution. But unfortunately, through the influences of our trustworthy government, wink, wink, and other major agencies and special interest groups, we've gotten into this pattern, this conventional wisdom, where we assume that certain types of foods are good for us that are not. We assume that certain types of movement or ways of exercising are good for us or beneficial, and they're not. And so what my company does, what I've done for the past 25 years is, again, look at all the research and kind of distill this information to what I consider pretty simple rules of living. We call these the 10 Primal Blueprint laws. And if you can live by these laws, and it's choices. It's a daily choice you make. You know, it's not all or nothing. You can be in a little bit and get some results. But if you can give your genes what your genes expect of you on a day-to-day basis, you will trend toward better health, more energy. You'll trend toward an ideal body composition. You'll trend more toward more productivity. And ultimately, and this is the strongest testimonial I ever get, people say, yes, I have more energy and I lost 75 pounds or whatever, but I know now that I can live like this for the rest of my life, and it is so empowering because now I don't have to depend on my doctor to keep me healthy. I know how to do it myself.
That's so important, particularly now when we're looking at how much money is being spent on these inflated medical care prices. And if people had been taking care of themselves and eating right, we wouldn't have half the problems that we've got. And this is one of the things that I like about which we have a copy of your book, Primal Blueprint, 21-Day Total Body Transformation. You can do anything for 21 days. I mean, maybe you won't like this. I don't think that'll be the case, but maybe you won't. But what could it hurt to try it for 21 days? Now, you've got in there, and believe it or not, we've got about a few more minutes for the break, but you've got in there a section that says grains are totally unnecessary. This is what, for me, of course, there are a lot of us, we feel like there's something we're clinging to, right? I mean, for me, it's that Italian meal with the salad, the pasta with sauce and whatever, yeah. and the hunk of bread. And how am I going to live without that? But you're arguing that not only are grains unnecessary, but to some degree they're positively harmful. Now, and just cutting this out, in addition to other things, would yield you results. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, this was the biggest eye-opener for me because I've been researching nutrition science for 25 or 30 years. I have a degree from Williams College, a specialty in biology. I was a performance enhancement nut when I was an athlete, looking at all the ways that I could figure out to naturally enhance my performance through diet. And when I started reading about how antithetical grains were to health, they raise your insulin in any form, whether it's complex carbs or not. They contain these things we call anti-nutrients, phytates that bind with minerals and prevent your body from absorbing minerals and may be a cause for osteoporosis among women who are increasing the amount of whole grains in their diets. They contain lectins that interfere with the turnover of cells lining your gut and can actually possibly lead to leaky gut syndrome, which can lead to autoimmune diseases. The list of anti-nutrients in grains goes on and on. So the only good reason to make grains any part of your diet is as a cheap source of calories that quickly converts into sugar in your bloodstream. And that's the only good reason, which is not a very good one. So when I fought for my right to continue to eat grains. Even after 10 years of research, I kept going, well, I'm a grain eater. I'm the guy who can eat grains. Don't worry about me. But then I thought, well, I'm doing all this research. I should do my own 30-day experiment. So I gave up grains for 30 days 11 years ago, and it was transformative. I was already fit. I was already the sort of the picture of health. But when I gave up grains at the age of 47, the arthritis in my fingers went away. That arthritis that I thought was a natural part of getting older. The irritable bowel syndrome that I'd lived with my entire life and I thought was due to stress went away. Simple sinus infections that I used to get that I thought, again, were sort of related to the air or what was floating around the air went away. It was transformative. And that's the report I get from so many people who say, look, I just gave up the grains and everything made sense after that.
Mark, this is just, I've got so much I want to ask you. I want to bring people into this conversation. 855-472-4433. That's 855-4SHIFT. Join the conversation with Mark Sisson of marksdailyapple.com. We'll be talking with him more on the other side of this break. You're listening to The Peter Schiff Show, the gold standard in talk radio.
We both know the trouble.
All right, everybody, welcome back to The Peter Schiff Show. I'm Tom Woods, in for Peter, joined by Mark Sisson, author of the Primal Blueprint and Primal Blueprint 21-Day Total Body Transformation. Mark, I was just Googling the other day, I think it was Department of Agriculture. I wanted to see if the food pyramid had been modified in any way, and they're still calling for 6 to 11 servings of grain a day. So that I should be sitting in bed at the end of the day thinking to myself, good grief, I only had 5 servings of grain. I better get out of bed and make myself a macaroni and cheese sandwich and put some cornflakes on it, and then I'll feel better about myself. Is this going to change? Do you see any trend in the official circles toward acknowledging anything of what you're saying, or are they still living in the dark here?
Oh, they're so far in the dark, and I see no trend toward a change. What I do see, this is a bottom-up movement. This is a grassroots movement. But again, for a libertarian mindset, this is so empowering, and in my mind, it's so exciting to suddenly realize I don't need Uncle Sam looking over my shoulder, because I know now I have enough information that I can take control of my own health and my own welfare and my family's health and welfare, and I can have so much influence on all of these things because I have this particular type of information, this lens through which to look at the world. But again, you're right. 6 to 11 servings of grains. In my mind, that's criminal. And they're pushing lots of orange juice and apple juice because those are supposedly healthy. They're not. Now, by the way, this is not. I'm not proposing some draconian diet. This is a lifestyle in which I say you can eat all you want whenever you want from this long list of wonderful, tasty, natural foods: meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, vegetables, fruit. As long as you don't eat from this list over here that contains vegetable oils and seed oils like safflower, corn oil, soybean oil, and things like that, because we could go into why those are bad for you. As long as you don't eat a lot of sugar and high fructose corn syrup containing goods, just basically stay away from the packaged processed stuff and stick with the natural stuff. It's pretty darn simple. And you can pick as an individual where you want to be on that sliding scale. If you want to go in whole hog and just eat grass-fed beef, go for it. If you say, well, I'm going to try this a little bit, step in a little bit and see what happens, there's a way you can enter this and really start to see the results. And as you get more and more results, you go, wow, this is working. I'm going to kind of get to the next level.
I'm so glad you made that point, because I do not want to leave the impression that this is all about making sacrifices, because to the contrary, everybody, without fail, I've talked to who's adopted this lifestyle has said, I feel like I'm eating like a king. I mean, the idea that I'm giving something up is ludicrous. But at the same time, now I have a practical question for you, because my wife and I are planning to do this starting next month. I mean, I've gradually started modifying my eating habits, but we're really going to do the whole 21-day thing starting next month. But here's the thing. We got 4 little kids, ages 8 and down. And obviously, you're not big on sweets for good reason. And if we're going to do this, my wife and I, then the whole household's going to do it. And am I not depriving them of some of the innocent pleasures of childhood? Like, I have guilt, even though of course I want them to be healthy. But yet I still feel this nagging feeling that I'm going to wreck their childhood. Like, what kind of countervailing considerations can you offer?
Again, these are all about choices, Tom. And one choice might be, my wife and I are going to do this, and we're going to set a good example, and we're going to prepare the kind of meals that the whole family can eat, and make certain of those other questionable, shall we say, food types that kids are used to, the occasional macaroni and cheese or whatever, available in limited quantity, so they're not feeling like they're deprived. But this starts with the example set by the parents. Look, the human body is resilient, and you could live your life eating pizza and drinking Coca-Cola, and live to be 75 years old. You might not be in the greatest of health, and you and I might argue over how much that I have to pay in my tax dollars to make sure that you get your meds, But these are still choices, and I'm just offering a set of choices that I think that the research shows can provide the best levels of energy, can give you the optimal health, can get you toward your ideal body composition. And by the way, my main motivation here is I was a marathoner. I worked my butt off. I struggled and suffered and sweated and groaned. And when I retired at the ripe old age of 28 because of all the injuries and the type of diet that was required to fuel all those miles, I said to myself, look, I want to be as lean, strong, fit, happy, healthy, and productive as I can possibly be with the least amount of pain, suffering, sacrifice, discipline, calorie counting, portion control, and all that other negative nonsense. So this starts with the example set by you for your kids in this case. Could be the example you set for your employees, for your friends. This is, again, as I said, this is a bottom-up movement, but it is so empowering. And I just think we're coming into an exciting time with the frustration that people have now with legislation and everything else. Here's an area that we can take full control and decide what to do on our own.
We've got just a couple minutes for a hard break. Could I persuade you to stay on for one more segment with us?
Yeah, sure.
Because I mean, there's just so much to talk about, and I'm just to have the chance to talk to you is just unbelievable. When I found out I got the guest slot again today, I said, "All right, I'm getting this guy on so I can ask him my question." Because this one we might not be able to handle just before the break, but I'm going to spell it out to you anyway. My wife has a question for you. This is a privilege of being the host. You can get all your questions answered. She wanted to know how does the issue of cholesterol fit into all this? The idea that I'm going to eat a lot of red meat, people would say, but this is bad. How does this involve? What's the deal, basically, with blood pressure and cholesterol? How does it fit into this? Maybe we can get started on this, and then I'll intervene, and we'll go over the break.
Well, the short answer is that it's been known for decades that cholesterol and saturated fat are not the proximate cause of heart disease. So all this worry about cholesterol levels and absolute numbers of cholesterol has been kind of a straw man argument. Cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease. It's basically inflammation and oxidation of a certain identifiable small fraction of cholesterol that we can alter, once again, through the types of food we choose to eat. So we don't worry about the large numbers or high numbers of cholesterol in general on this program, and I go into detail in the Primal Blueprint, breaking down exactly why cholesterol is one of the most important molecules in the body. And for the American Medical Association and for the all of the governmental organizations to vilify cholesterol as it has over the past 40 or 50 years is an example of the mishmash of public policy making and faulty science and how all this stuff kind of comes together to create conventional wisdom that is actually harming us rather than helping us. So that as long as you get the other elements of that diet dialed in, or that eating strategy dialed in.
All right, you're listening to Mark Sisson on the Peter Schiff Show. I'm Tom Woods, your guest host. Stick around, more with Mark. Call in 1-855-4-SCHIFF, 855-472-4433. Join the conversation on the Peter Schiff Show, the gold standard in talk radio. Don't go away. Welcome back, everybody, to the Peter Schiff Show. I'm Tom Woods, in for Peter. It's my great pleasure to be joined by Mark Sisson of marksdailyapple.com, which I insist you visit. Check out his books, not only his great cookbook, but also Primal Blueprint 21-Day Total Body Transformation. You sign up for his newsletter, you get cookbooks, you get all kinds of stuff for free. I mean, you'd be crazy not to do this, and you don't want to be the last guy doing it. And Mark, I'll tell you that I have a friend who now, anyway, is now the chief blogger for the Ron Paul presidential campaign, and he is full on board Primal Blueprint guy after I told him about it some time ago, and he watched me eat fajitas without the rice and the beans and without the tortillas, and I just ate the food, and I was having a great old time, and he wanted to know why I was eating in such a bizarre way, and now he has embraced it, and he says he's never felt better, he's dropped 10 pounds and all that. So there is just, the audience for this is just growing like crazy. But let's go to the phones here now. We've got Mike in New York. Mike, welcome to the Peter Schiff Show.
Hi, Tom. How's it going?
Doing well.
I have a question for Mark, actually. About 9 months ago, I read the Primal Blueprint, and ever since then I've been feeling great and really adopted the lifestyle. But recently I went to my doctor, and he informed me that I had high uric acid due to all the eating more red meats. And I was wondering, what can I do to sort of reduce the uric acid and still stick to the Primal Blueprint?
Yeah, quick question for you, Mike. Are you eating a lot of fruit?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of times we know that uric acid is a result of fructose consumption, which is the sugar in fruit, and not related to red meat in any way, shape, or form. So the simple answer might be, try going a week or two without fruit, or maybe even a month without fruit, cutting way back, or maybe limiting it to tart berries or something like that, and see if that causes a reduction.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and that brings up another interesting concept, because there are certain things about certain foods that we assume all fruit must be great for you. But fruit, the way it's grown today, does not resemble the fruit that our ancestors had 50,000 or a million years ago, which in those days did not have that much sugar in it. Today's fruit is grown for its sugar content, so we have to be a little bit careful about the amount of fruit that we consume. Not quite the same admonition for vegetables, but if you're a person looking to lose weight, in this time, starting out, fruit is probably not your friend the way vegetables would be, the way meat, fish, fowl, and eggs would be. Make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Good.
All right, Mike, thanks very much for the call. I appreciate it. Let's see. Have we got just waiting for some calls to crystallize here and figure out who people are and where they are. So in the meantime, let me ask a question. You have a certain credibility, Mark, being and having been such an unbelievable athlete in the past. I mean, if it was some fat guy on a couch, we wouldn't listen to him when he says, look, you don't have to train to be one of these over-the-top athletes to be healthy. But it means something when you say it, and when we see pictures of you on your website, we say, what is this guy doing? So what are you telling people in terms of exercise? And what are they doing wrong today?
Yeah, the single greatest revelation and epiphany that I had on this eating strategy, and now it's borne out by hundreds of thousands of user experiences, and that is that 80% of your body composition, 80% of you that is muscle versus fat, happens as a result of how you manipulate hormones and gene expression through your eating habits. In other words, we literally can reprogram our genes to become efficient fat-burning beasts and move away from this dependence that so many of us have had on carbohydrate. That's the essence of the eating strategy in Primal Blueprint, is to re-access what I call your factory setting at birth, which was to be an efficient fat-burning organism. Now, once you understand that 80% of this happens as a result of how you eat, you get also that you don't have to do that much exercise to maintain tone, to have cardiovascular fitness, to look good naked, as is the goal for a lot of people. All these things that we're trying to get in a physical body composition realm, it doesn't take that much exercise. In fact, in my case, I do 2 hard workouts a week. They take anywhere from 17 to 35 minutes. I do 1 sprint workout a week. I sometimes do it on the beach running, but I can do it on a bike. I can do it on an elliptical. All of that is outlined in my books. It's very simple. That takes about 25 minutes, start to finish. And then I fill the rest of the time in with play. I try to find ways that I can move my body to have fun, not to be, staring at some LED readout, hoping I can get up to 475 to earn my, the bagel that I'm going to get when I get home.
Right. Yeah, and I like the image really is of a hamster on a wheel. Because people, then they have the bagel, then they got to exercise more, which makes them want to have another bagel, and it just keeps going on and on. All right, let's go back to the phones here. We got we got Casey in California. Casey, you're on the Peter Schiff Show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Tom, you're my favorite speaker as far as the freedom movement goes. And my question for your guests is if it's as important to cut out the grains completely or if you can just reduce them and see some benefit.
Good question. And again, as I like to tell people, all of this is a series of choices that you can make based on the information that you now possess. And in the case of grains, if you're somebody who's not tremendously sensitive to grains the way I was, even though I thought I wasn't, by the way, I mean, you don't have to have celiac or Crohn's disease to still have some negative reaction to grains. But, you can experiment with it. What I have people do is try to go cold turkey on the grains for 21 days and see what you notice. Make it an experiment of 1 for yourself. And if you notice tremendous improvements in health, if you notice that your inflammation goes down. A lot of people carry what we call systemic inflammation, and a lot of it's due to the grain products and the effect that they have on turning on certain genes within your body that cause you to become inflamed. And obviously we want to turn those genes off. So this is just about making choices. If you're a person who thinks you cannot possibly give up grains, and you can still play with us. You can still, there's lots of other things you can do. But the ideal situation would be certainly cut out the wheat. Wheat is the greatest offender in all categories, and it's again ironic that it gets so much support from special interest groups and lobbyists and the government, giving it, on the base of the food pyramid. But yeah, just it's a chance to figure out for yourself as an experiment of one, where you'd like to play on this scale.
Casey, thanks very much for the call. Mark, I get a lot of people telling me that it's not that they suddenly don't want to eat pizza anymore. Of course, and there are primal ways to eat pizza. It turns out, like the recipe suggestions are incredible. But it's not that suddenly a piece of cheesecake is not attractive to them anymore. And once in a great while, you have a piece of cheesecake and you enjoy it, and that's the end of it. But it's that they say it's how I feel and how I used to feel when I ate this stuff. And I say to myself, no sensory enjoyment that I get from this could possibly compensate for the difference in health that I feel, that I'm enjoying. Let's go to Andrew in Florida. Andrew, welcome to the Peter Schiff Show.
I had a comment and a question for Mark. Once, I read your book around 6 months ago, and it was a great book. It changed the way I looked at my diet completely. And I was actually hoping, I was thinking about this a few months ago, that it was good for you to come on this show, because I think it's a good example of what happens when government gets in. And I was wondering if there's anything we could do. I remember being in middle school and just them shoving these, carbs down my throat, making, get the whole grains that you need. And even on the commercials, you can see with these cereal companies, it's like, make sure you get the whole grains, and you need these whole grains, just shoving it down our throat. And then, the fruits and vegetables, try to get those every once in a while, but the whole grains. And it's just sad. I think, it's a lie. I think it's criminal, like you mentioned earlier. And what do you think we can do about this and getting the word out more?
Well, it is getting the word out more. It has to be a grassroots kind of thing. If you have some influence in your local school board and you can somehow convince the board to replace certain types of the school lunch program with what I would consider healthier alternatives, then I say go for it. But the alternative to that would be to make sure your kids bring a bag lunch to school, and hopefully they'll eat what you give them and not trade it away for the Twinkies and the ding dongs. But it really is about personal responsibility and personal freedom, and that's what I love so much about what we're talking about here. It really does. It brings it down to a visceral, tangible kind of element. Like, I have something now that I can do for myself and my family that will positively impact our health, will take away any potential reliance we might have had on, quote, the system, and it's just wickedly empowering. But it is a grassroots movement. We're not going to do it by somehow convincing lawmakers that this needs to happen. It's one person talking to one person. It's Tom talking to a listening audience, and that's how it happens.
All right, Andrew, thanks for the call. We're going to take one more call. Joel in Rhode Island. Joel, welcome to the Peter Schiff Show.
Thanks. Mark, I just wanted you to talk about for a second the possibility of eating grains and legumes, fermented grains and legumes. We know that when they were introduced into the diet a long time ago, they were never eaten the way they are today. They always had a long ferment or long soaking to make them more digestible.
Yeah, there is a body of work. The Weston Price Foundation, in particular, looks at traditional uses of grains. Now, again, remember that grains really have not been part of the human diet for any appreciable amount of time. Over 2.5 million years of evolution in which our bodies adapted to certain types of foods. Grains really have only been in existence for about 10,000 years, and in many parts of the world, less than that. That's not enough time for our bodies to adapt to the anti-nutrients in grain. Now, a good example, you mentioned legumes. Legumes are a plant that must be prepared in order to be eaten. Otherwise, it's literally poisonous. And my take on this is that any plant that is poisonous in its raw state can't be rendered beneficial in a cooked state. It can be rendered edible, and it can be maybe rendered palatable enough to provide calories so that people can survive. But I'm not even a fan of the soaking and the fermenting of grains. If you read the book, and there's a very lengthy explanation about how you can, possibly once in a while incorporate fermented grains or cooked legumes into your eating strategy, as long as it's not the basis of your eating program, you can probably get away with it. And these are all just choices. I just want people to understand the ramifications of every bite you take. And as Tom said, if you decide to have a piece of cheesecake, that is your right, that is your privilege, and as long as I've given you enough information to where you realize that if you've cleaned your act up and you've repartitioned your fuel usage because you've literally reprogrammed your genes to become an efficient fat burner, then when you recognize that eating that piece of cheesecake or that piece of chocolate cake, for the 3 minutes of gustatory pleasure that you're going to have, that you are going to suffer, night sweats and not be able to sleep and have a heart palpitation or whatever it is and a high insulin because of, for the next 5 hours, it's just a trade-off. Now you know. Now you know what was happening when you ate like that all the time, and now you know, maybe I better not do that so much. Maybe one bite of cheesecake is all I need to get the sense of it and push the rest away.
Joel, thanks very much for the call. Mark, as I knew, the time has just flown by. Why don't you take the last minute we have for this segment and tell us about your website, your books, and anything you want to leave the audience with.
Sure. The website is marksdailyapple.com. It is the definitive go-to site for new information in this, what we call the ancestral, paleo, primal eating strategy and lifestyle, because this goes way beyond the diet. We talk a lot about other stuff. marksdailyapple.com. My books, The Primal Blueprint and The 21-Day Total Body Transformation, are available on Amazon. They're also available on my product site, which is primalblueprint.com. So there are a lot of options to go and dig in and look at what we have to offer and the information. So much free information on Mark's Daily Apple that that's how a lot of people get started. They go there and they delve in and they immerse in themselves, and then they come up for air about a few days later and say, "Wow, this is I never knew this was possible," and they get excited like you did, Tom.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a fantastic site. Mark, thank you so much and you're such a good sport to stay an extra segment. Thanks for taking the time with us today.
My pleasure. Anytime.